you're in the gym and you're worried about dropping a dumbbell on somebody's head, they're not good, they're not productive, they're not beneficial, but at the same time, they're not really going to happen. Hi, my name is Betty and I'm a recovery coach. On the previous episode, I was talking about mental health and how that can translate when you've got an autoimmune condition, specifically lupus. And today we're going to be talking a little bit more about that, but on how to manage that and how we can go about managing that. I think that everybody talks to themselves at one point or the other. If you ever go to the supermarket, you probably have your shopping list, but then when you get to the bread aisle, you're like, okay, should I have this bread? Should I have that bread? Should I have chicken? Should I have beef for dinner? Is this enough protein? I'm trying to, get some muscle if you're a gym goer or if you're trying to get fit. And so like everybody has chatter in their brain about one thing or another, about, their relationships. Should I call my friend? Should I solve this problem? How should I go about it? We're always having chatter in our minds, and it's quite normal for everybody. And specifically if you've got an autoimmune condition or if you've got lupus, the depression and anxiety that I talked about earlier, that chatter can be a bit more enhanced. We have to know where to draw the line. Okay, cool. I'm going to entertain this thought. I'm not going to entertain this thought. Let the thought pass. If you've got lupus or if you've got an autoimmune condition, there's so many things that you're managing. There's so many things that you're thinking about. And some of the symptoms are as a result of the condition. It's not because of, leave alone circumstantial chatter, things that come with everyday life, but these are symptoms that come as a result of the condition. So if that happens, then I think we need more tools in the box. And the chatter that goes on in our minds are really helpful in that they help us to interact with others. For example, I'm relying on my brain to remember what to say in this exact video. I am relying on my brain when I'm having conversations with my family or my friends in a way that can, bring fun into the conversation, recall all the different things that I did when I'm having catch-ups with them. If it's relationships that are ongoing or really intimate relationships, how do we move to the next level? Or how do you plan? How do you plan for the future? How do you plan what you're going to do for the new year? How do you plan what you're going to do for quarter 3 or quarter 4? How do you plan what you're going to do next month? Your budgeting, all that kind of stuff. Our brain or our mind helps us with all these things, interaction, planning. They help us to create. They help us come up with all these ideas. We use our imagination to create things that we want to see in the world, or to create the life we imagine. And God made us that way. I'm a person of faith, I'm a believer, so I very much believe that we have the mind of Christ and that God gave us a mind to be able to create and to imagine and to become the people that He's called us to be. And so we also use our brains to motivate ourselves. If you go to the gym and maybe you've been there for the first 5 minutes, you probably want to pack in. You're why did I even come here? This is so hard. I just want to go home after doing 10 reps. But then you can also use your mind to motivate yourself and say, okay, I'm going to do 5 more. And after the 5 more, I'm going to do 5 more. Or you can actually decide to pack in and go home. I don't know if you've done that before. I have. But maybe I'm just the weak link. But anyway, so we use our minds to motivate ourselves. We use our minds to also control ourselves. And this video is very much about that. It's about self-mastery. It's about how we control the chatter that happens in our minds. So then it's not very much controlling or ruling our lives. And I think I should have just started by prefacing this video and saying that as much as I spoke about the struggles that people with autoimmune conditions have, or people with lupus have, you are not your condition. You might contend with the condition every so often, but that does not have to define you. And so it's very important to approach things with that perspective or with that in mind. I'm not a victim of this situation. It doesn't define me, but it's something that I'm contending with. And so even if you're having a flare-up, and in another video I'll talk about flare-ups and symptoms of a flare-up and what even a flare-up is. But if you're having a flare-up, that's when the symptoms are really rampant. You can really look at it. It puts the suffering, let me put it that way. It puts the suffering and the temporariness of it into perspective, in that this is a passing thing. This will not be me forever. Because when you're going through something like that, you can tend to think, there's no hope for the future and this is as good as it's going to get. The chatter in our minds can sometimes lead to worry or rumination. When we're worrying about and ruminating about our health, that can really create a stress response, and that stress response can then manifest in the body in terms of like inflammation. For example, you might start experiencing like back pain. Sometimes even people have experienced like really bad back pain, or like maybe pain in the neck or something, and you think maybe you slept badly, but actually it's just your body telling you, I'm really stressed. And sometimes even has nothing to do with the condition. It's just your body responding physically to what's going on in your mind. So it's just like really important to like, those things that are really pivotal in our lives, being able to think and perform, relationships, and our well-being. Those are really important things that rumination can affect. If you're experiencing flare-ups, you can most of the time maybe get worried if you even start getting a headache or something, which is one of the symptoms that you can get. Am I experiencing a flare-up? Is it all about to go south? And all that worry and rumination, you're unable to be present, you're unable to like think long term, to be able to like really be there for other people, because you're consumed by what it is that's happening with your own body, with your own situation. And that can also affect your performance, say at the workplace. And I had someone say once that like if all the worry and the rumination that everybody in the world goes through on a daily basis, if we all combined it all into one, all that energy, we can all use it, and probably we wouldn't even need another source of energy. Isn't that crazy to think that? It just goes to show like how much worrying and rumination can consume a lot of energy. But then again, when you're dealing with the circumstance here, or like the situation as it is here, experiencing pain or like experiencing a lot of chronic fatigue, it can be difficult to kind of not worry about it and ruminate. The effects of that worrying and rumination is, number one, it really affects our ability to think clearly and to perform, especially if you're trying to balance your relationships. Especially we all want our relationships to go well, whether it's in a family setting or in our friendships. So then if you're really in your mind, you're unable to be present, you're able to like think long term, to be able to like really be there for other people, because you're consumed by what it is that's happening with your own body, with your own situation. The worrying and rumination can also affect your performance, say at the workplace. And if you've ever like maybe had a bit of brain fog and you're trying to get through a task, it can be almost impossible. And all those things that make our lives fulfilling, like relationships, being able to add value to the workplace, or like being able to bring contribution to society or to community in one way or the other, then all those things are hindered. And it's not something to be ashamed about, and it's not something to suppress or to hide away from. It's quite the opposite. We can use it to our advantage by confronting it and addressing it and teaching the chatter in our minds on what to think, and the conversation, the inner dialogue that's happening in our minds. The Bible says that we should take every thought captive and bring it to the obedience of Christ. And by that it means if you're not a follower of Jesus, or if you're not Christian and you haven't come across the Bible, what that's trying to say is saying that to the obedience of Christ, it means that everything that's good, everything that's noble, everything that's praiseworthy, everything that's good that you would tell another friend, that you'd be happy to share with them, everything that's kind, everything that's compassionate, everything that builds you up. Those are the things that we should focus on. And the whole point of teaching our chatter, or the inner dialogue that's happening in our minds, is all in an attempt to build a friendlier you, a healthier you, and a wiser you. So you can be able to navigate the world, so you can be able to build good relationships, to be able to perform and to think, and to be able to do all the things and be the person that you were created to be. So then what tools do we need to be able to combat that? Number one, it's being able to have circle of friends who can, not only can you share that with, but they can also like question you on like what it is that's going through your mind, and kind of like be able to, these are people like who really care about you. They want your well-being to be top notch, or like they're really concerned and they want you to progress and become a better human being. So they can really objectively look into your situation and be able to ask you questions about the worry and rumination. Because sometimes actually we're thinking about the worst that could happen. It's really normal for us to experience like thoughts like that. That they're not good, they're not productive, they're not beneficial, but at the same time they're not really going to happen. The probability of them happening is very, very low. So it takes somebody else to come in and say, hey, I understand why you would think that, but also it's not really probable that that might happen. Kind of like center us, bring us back to center, or like bring us back and calibrate our thoughts a little bit, help us calibrate our thoughts a little bit. The other thing is just kind of like using our senses. For example, you might be able to use music as a way of like recentering yourself, or maybe even using breath work. There's so many tools on breath work that are really helpful. Even like first aiders are able to use that to be able to help people who are in a crisis, to be able to like calm their nervous system by taking deep breaths and being able to, circulate the blood and just kind of calm down the brain. Other things include expressive writing and particularly journaling. I can attest personally to the benefits of journaling, because then you're able to really express yourself on paper and write, just kind of like brain dump, just dump it all on paper and not worry about somebody seeing it or somebody reading it. And I think that's the vulnerable part, and maybe that's even why people don't do it. And also maybe it takes a little bit of time as well, because you have to dedicate an amount of time to be able to do that. But yeah, those three things, those three tools are what I'd leave with you. I've also left some resources in the description box. One of them is a book called Chatter, and another one is a book called Shift, that can really transform the way you have a look or the way you think about the self-talk that happens in your mind and how you navigate mental health if you've got an autoimmune condition. I hope all those were helpful and help you calibrate your mental health, especially if you're experiencing or if you have an autoimmune condition. My name is Betty, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.